This lesson is on section 3.2, proving lines are parallel. In the last section, we learned about lines being cut by a transversal, and we talked about alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles. In this case, what we're going to do is, if we know that two angles are congruent or are supplementary, which lines have to be parallel based on that information. So it's still about alternate interior, alternate exterior, same side interior. It's still about those angles, but now we're going backwards. Instead of saying because the lines are parallel, alternate interior angles are congruent, we're going to say if alternate interior angles are congruent, then the lines must be parallel. So we're kind of looking at the converse of what we did in the last lesson. So an example would be angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. So angle 1 is here, angle 5 is here. If those two angles are congruent, the first thing that you want to do is look at what the relationship is between them. And we would say that angle 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. So if I took this set of 4 and dropped it down on this set of 4, 1 would land on top of 5. That makes them corresponding angles. So corresponding angles sit on the same side of the transversal, which means B is the transversal. And that leaves M and N to be the lines that have to be parallel. If 1 equals 5, then lines M and N would have to be parallel. Okay, that's how that would work. 2 and 11. Okay, looking at that one. 2 and 11, this one's 2, here's 11. Looking at those two, those would also have to be corresponding angles. So in that case, they're both sitting on the transversal M. To find the transversal, you look for the line they have in common. Okay, since they're both sitting on line M, M is the transversal, which means A and B would have to be your parallel lines. 9 and 14. 9 and 14 are here and here. They are both sitting on line A, so A is the transversal. They are alternate exterior angles, so in order for them to be congruent, M and N would have to be parallel. (11 and 13). 11 and 13 are supplementary. Now it says that this one and this one have to equal 180 together. They are both. They would be same side interior, and same side interior angles are supplementary if lines are parallel. So because they're supplementary, we know that lines are parallel. They are both sitting on line A, which means A is the transversal, which means M and N would be the lines that are parallel. 3 and 11. 3 and 11 are alternate interior angles. It says here that they are supplementary. In order for the lines to be parallel, we would have to know that 3 and 11 are congruent. So because we know that they're supplementary, that tells us that we don't know any lines are parallel. So in this case, we would have to say none that we know of. Okay? If it would have said 3 and 11 are congruent, then M would have been the transversal and A and B would have been parallel. But it says supplementary, so we don't know anything about the lines being parallel then. Okay, just a quick review then. M and N, a review from the last lesson. If M and N are parallel, what's the relationship between angle 1 and angle 8? Okay, if they're parallel, then 1 would have to be congruent to 5 because they'd be corresponding, and 5 and 8 would be supplementary because they form a straight line. So if 1 and 5 are congruent and 5 and 8 are supplementary, then 1 and 8 would have to be supplementary. Okay, that's how that works. Sometimes you have to do this equal to this and that equal to that and do a couple steps before you get to the relationship. Okay. So algebra obviously comes into play here often. So let's talk about lines being parallel. If your lines are parallel, remember that the symbol is you will see arrows on those lines like that. And in this case, it says that angle 1 is 2x plus 26, and angle 2 is 3x minus 33. If these lines are parallel, then 1 and 2 are alternate interior angles, which means that they're congruent. So you would set 3x minus 33 equal to 2x plus 26, and then you would subtract, and you subtract 2x and get 1x, and then you would add the 33 over to the other side, and you would get 59. So x would be 59 in that case. In example 2, it says find the values of a and c. Well, that make k and m parallel. If these lines are parallel, then these lines act as transversals. Okay, so if this is the transversal, the relationship between 65 and A would be that they are alternate interior angles. So A would have to be 65 degrees, just like this one. Notice there's a Z shape. Remember, I told you, anytime there's a Z shape, you're going to have alternate interior angles. Same thing holds true then for C, because notice there's a Z shape here as well. So C and 40 would have to be congruent if our lines are parallel. So C would have to be 40 degrees. That concludes this lesson. Your homework is as follows.